There was a guy who was interviewing who was talking about sports, and he was talking about life lessons in sports and how you can use that. And one of the studies that he shared, which I thought was very powerful, that people are looking at what's the difference between winners and champions. So Roger Federer is a champion. He's won the Grand Slam many times, whereas an Andy Roddick is a winner. He's won it once or twice. So what's that difference? And they tabulated it across sports and found one difference. It's called
Hello and welcome to Reset Diaries. Today I'm joined by someone who has truly mastered the art of career reinvention and is no stranger to the power of resets. Sharad Lal, an entrepreneur who has made bold moves across industries over the years, from consulting to owning a successful marketing agency and then selling it all to start afresh with his new venture, How to Live. We'll dive into his journey and explore how he has helped over 20,000 people discover their potential and purpose and see what lessons we can learn from his experience. Welcome, Sharad.
Thank you very much, Asta, for the kind introduction, and thank you very much for inviting me to your podcast.
It's my pleasure, and I'm so excited because there are just this lot of questions that I want to ask you, and I'm curious about your journey. So, I want to start your pivot from the marketing agency. So, you ran this successful marketing agency, worked with some of the biggest brands for over 20 years, and then you recently sold it off and again started afresh. So, what prompted this decision to let go of all and start afresh?
Asta, this started like 10 years back, the whole process. So this was back in 2013 um, when I was running this agency and things were going really well. And I suffered like a huge loss that made me question what truly is important in life. And as I was questioning it, I connected with a deeper purpose to help people in their careers. And then I started a nonprofit. And I think that's how we met,
Yeah.
which was helping people in their careers. And while I was doing it, I realized that people are looking more at not only just career, how do I live a better life?
Hmm.
And I thought, let me work on that area. So I became a life coach. And on the side, I was coaching people. I started this podcast, which you know, How to Live, which was again on the side. I was doing keynotes. And all along, I started finding more fulfillment out of this other part of the work versus my design business. And then there was a stage, which was I think about 2 years back, when I got invited to actually speak to do a workshop on purpose, which worked really well. And then I was signed up for 20, 30 more. And that made me realize that this path of purpose can be monetized and I can earn a reasonably good living through this, even if it's not as much as my design agency, but I can earn because I have responsibilities
Hmm.
and it gives me fulfillment. So through that, I started the process now on how do I move here? I initially hired a CEO to run my company for a few years so that I could focus on this. But after a period of time, I thought, I mean, I still was a little involved, that the best way is to try and exit it. So then I can focus in every way on this new venture that I'm starting.
Nice. So, yeah, I mean, I have heard some of the entrepreneurs, they say that you don't leave your day job, or in your case, it's your business completely from the day one. Like, keep tinkering with it, playing with it on the side. And when you feel you're ready, that's when press
Yes.
that button. But, this whole idea of single linear career path, it's already, especially post COVID, we are seeing it's becoming incredibly outdated. So, what are the main elements you would advise somebody who are intending to create this kind of reset in their lives?
Right. So, Asta, I think as you rightly pointed out, we have longer careers because of which we might have different kinds of careers at different stages. I think the first thing is to understand where this is coming from. Let's understand. Quite often, when you're looking at shifting careers, there's some sort of restlessness that's coming in because of which you want to change. So that to me is step one, to investigate what really is going on.
Mm.
Sometimes it's an adverse reaction. I didn't get promoted because of which now I want to change,
Hmm.
which again it may be a knee-jerk reaction and may not be the thing. Sometimes it's like my peers have gone ahead, or this sounds great and that's why I want to go ahead. So that's the first thing to clarify. Is
Hmm.
the intention just a knee-jerk thing, or is it something deeper? Once we determine that it's deeper, then we can determine that, all right, what is it that I want to do? And that, of course, is the big question,
Hmm.
where it takes a while to figure out that these are the types of areas I want to be in. Now, that process
Mm.
has to be the starting point for me is internal, because there's always a lot of noise that you should do this career is better, we want to go after shiny objects. But in my view, when we're looking at what do we want to do, we really want to move somewhere else. It's canceling the noise and going deeper to understand what truly is important. This could be through meditation, journaling, reflection over a period of time. And then we might start arriving at things like, well, I like problem solving. I like analytical thinking. I love it when I work in teams. That energizes me. As we start getting hints of this, we get a sense of what could be potential areas for me to try.
Mm.
The next step is, like you mentioned just before this, shrinking and exploring. Because it's not like, hey, this is the area, now I need to go in. Because
Mm.
once we actually see the reality of what our thoughts are, different things will emerge and we learn more about ourselves as well as what we're going after. So if it is like, hey, I've been in a design agency, I want to get into, let's say in my case, coaching. So you
Mm.
tinker with it. And like in my experience, I loved it. But one of the things over a period of time that struck out to me was I don't like just a one on one interaction. I like
Mm.
more people. And then I
Mm.
realized if I do this all my career, while it gives me that intellectual stimulation, I miss out on a big thing. So I learned something about myself based on the hypothesis. Then I got an opportunity to do a keynote where I was speaking in front of multiple people. And there
Mm.
was that instant gratification. And I liked that part better. And I said, hey, a combination of these could work. And that way, through exploring different things, I tried the podcast, I tried one on one coaching, I tried a nonprofit. Over a period of time, it emerged that this is an area which actually gives me what I'm looking for and has a commercial part to it, because I can earn money, I have responsibilities, and this is where I can go into. And that's when I made that decision.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that, and I what I understood from your thought process that it's a very intentional process, because I think people don't do that. They all just say it over the drinks that I want to do something else, and then Monday comes, the whole rut starts again. So that intentionality has to be built in. So from your experience, what do you think people can do?
Yeah.
Like some quick things, what comes to your mind that how we can be more intentional about it and be more mindful about it?
Yeah. I think intentionality comes with being in touch with ourselves and seeing the source, because that is the source of motivation that's coming out, and seeing the true source. I think one good way, so that's the same process of removing this noise and going deeper. Where is this coming? Like, what really is driving me here?
Mm. Mm.
When I work with people, I do these things called inner journeys, which become extremely powerful, where I get people to just, go within, see times when they get energized, see times when they feel alive, and also look at what is the impact they want to leave behind once I remove the noise. So that's when you get to reality. Now, if you do not have like a meditative, this reflective practice, another way to do it is just putting your thoughts down in a raw form,
Mm.
because once you're putting it out of your head, you
Mm.
move away from this loop of
Mm.
rumination and thinking that, hey, I should do this because this one's saying this. You go deeper into why and what, and
Mm.
over a period of time you see a pattern. So I think reflection through writing is another way to do it.
Okay.
And of course there is this thing of having coaches, an external expert. Your friends are good, but
Mm.
everyone has their own
Yeah.
projection and agendas, and they want to justify things to themselves. So it may not be the most objective. So having someone else as a coach who does it for a life, who can help you walk through this and understand your values, understand what's important to you, and the intentions start coming from there. Because then the motivation is strong and you become intentional.
All right, right. Yeah, that makes sense. So, okay, let's talk about how to live then. What
Yes.
is how to live if you have to explain to a 5-year-old? What do you do, and how are you different from any other workplace
Yes.
productivity and employee experience organizations who claim to uplift the productivity, let's say?
Yeah. So maybe let's talk about the origin of it. This started as a podcast, and this was the time when I actually got a CEO to run it, and I was looking at what to do.
Hmm.
And I had done a lot of, over the last 6, 7 years, a lot of self reflection work, reading on spirituality, philosophy, psychology. And I was trying to answer this question that, hey, we've been given this life. How are we supposed to live it? Like, what is the best way to maximize? Is it happiness? Is it experiences? What is it? And in
Mm,
that journey, I discovered quite a few things which gave hints on what is the way to kind of live a meaningful life, purposeful life. And as I was talking it to lots of people, they found it useful. And then, of course, in my coaching, also people found it useful. So I then took it as a podcast where I started putting my own thoughts that, hey, should we go after achievement or should we go after fulfillment? How do we manage the stress? Is ambition versus contentment? All these questions I started putting up, which were my thoughts, and also learning when I was talking to different people.
mm, mm,
As I did that, I realized that I got the opportunity to do a keynote workshop on this, which was around purpose related to this, which then I realized that even in the corporate setting, there is a need, and it might come out from a place of motivation or engagement.
mm,
That
mm,
then started my path to creating this company. Now, how are we different? What do we do? I think we're centered into things that emerge from a deeper purpose. And later I'll talk about my definition of purpose is different, so I can talk about that later. But the way to think about it is something that comes from deep inside. So
mm,
the starting point is the same things we talk about, removing all the noise and figuring out inside what is important to me, what lights me up about work, about life, where am I right now, what is causing the restlessness. So it comes from inside, and then it goes to, okay, how do I take this thing that is coming from inside and make an impact externally? What can I do to make an impact? So it starts inside, I go out and make an impact. How do I commercialize it? How do I live a life around it? How do I go to my next level of growth through this? So that's the frame of this company. How's it differentiated? I think this sits in the land when I look at it, let's say in the corporate world, in leadership development programs for senior
mm,
leaders, CXOs, that's the land that it sits in. And most of the leadership development programs, as I see it now, are HR companies that have gone to create these programs. So you have the big HR consulting firms, you have folks who've done extremely well in HR who come with an HR organization approach to do it. I think where I stand out is I come from a life approach. I don't have an HR background, which in a way helps. I come from a life approach. I also bring in this whole commercial, practical skills from an entrepreneurial standpoint.
mm,
So that all those things coming together is very unique as it gets offered to people. And there's a big set of people, typically in their 40s, senior leaders who are thinking, oh, hey, what's my next peak? Where this appeals to, where it's like, hey, somebody can help me go deep, but they can help me then look at bringing it out, and they can also help me commercialize it practically, how to put it in place.
right. Well, on the face of it, as you were speaking, it looks like a very calibrated decision making that you did over the period and how you shaped how to live. And but I'm sure there'll be challenges that came along with it. And the reason that I'm saying is that it may look like you might have leveraged your corporate contacts over the years and you would have capitalized on them to start this company. But I want to understand, was it very smooth sailing, or what were your biggest challenges to get this rolled out?
So, absolutely right. I think as we get into it, there's of course lots of challenges that come in. I think what helped me was, like you said, I had contacts, and there are
Mm,
many people who had seen me put material out there, which I just put genuinely. Like this was something that I was very, very interested in, which I put as a
mm,
podcast, because of which I got a chance to do it because of my authenticity. Now that opens the door, but how do you build a business out of it? I think one of the biggest challenges that I faced was when you talk the word purpose, there are many people who like it, but there are many people who say, hey, I don't want to spend money on purpose for my organization, right?
mm,
And they may not say it to you. And this also comes under the mental wellness thing. They may not actually say it, but many leaders will think, all right, I need to do mental wellness because purpose sits under mental wellness. So there's this whole pressure coming from senior leadership, senior management that I have to do it. So let me just do it, but I don't want to spend too much money and I don't really believe in it. And when you have that, then the experience that I would have trying to do it with people, because people don't take it seriously, and the commercial aspect, all are low. So then I realized that just doing it is not sustainable, because in my view, 80 to 20, 80 to 90% of actual leaders don't really believe in it. So I
mm,
have to shift this towards performance.
mm,
But when you say that, hey, your people can perform better because of purpose, so people are saying, okay, let me listen to it. Or a metric that they have, the engagement levels are going to be higher, or a budget that they're looking at, leadership budget versus some other budget. So once I started getting to the nitty gritties of this, I realized this in its idealistic form is not going to go through. So I need to look at where the corporate landscape is and figure out what I want to do. So I think that was the first challenge, that how do I position it in a way that it is a sustainable business? The
Right.
second challenge was I was doing a lot of keynote speaking and workshops, which were like you go out and speak, and people would think of getting me when we have an offsite, let him come in and motivate people, or we have a team building thing and let him come in and motivate it. Now, that kind of a business is also interesting business, but it didn't work very well for me because then I'd be hunting for multiple clients, and these are not there all the time. So you're always hunting, and it's a one off and you're off, one off and you're off.
Mm,
I prefer businesses which are fewer and deeper,
mm,
because then there's a lot of learning. You see how people are transforming, and from a commercial standpoint, it's less business development, and you're going deeper into it. So I had to shift models, which I'm actually in the process of doing, versus one-off workshops, longer form programs, so
mm.
that you create something that companies want all the time.
Right.
Every new batch comes and does it. So that was another commercial challenge that came in, which I am now trying to figure out, like, what are learning journeys? How do I do it? How much of tech do I use? People are busy. They will not want to have someone coming all the time. So what is the right way to kind of do it? So yeah, that's the next kind of challenge that comes in. So like you're right, there are challenges that come in at different stages, and you have to sit back and see how to manage it. Our
Yeah.
first move may be that, oh my god, these guys don't understand it, they're bad. No, they are the customer. Now you need to understand how to serve them.
I loved it and how beautifully you articulated it, that you positioned it and spoke in their language. Purpose may look fluffy to them, but when
Yes.
you speak about performance and engagement and driving the metrics, that kind of strike the right chord with them, that, okay, this guy is helping us. So
Yes.
I love that, how to, kind of change your narrative and speak the language of the room. And since we are talking about workplace productivity, I have some statistics in front of me, and I would want to read that out. That Gallup's State of Global Workplace shows that only 15% of the employees are engaged in their work. So, my question to you is, very broadly, what do you think any individual can do more of and also less of to develop a deeper sense of belonging to their work?
All right. So this is a lot of the work that I do. So maybe I can answer based on my experience. I
Mhm.
think when I do these purpose at work workshops, one of the biggest things that I realize is when people connect to parts of the work that they love. There's always parts of work. It may not be the
Mm,
organization, but just the work that they do that they love, which over a period of time they've forgotten. So, for example, when I do these inner journeys, people recollect that, you know what? Solving a difficult problem is something I love. Even
mm,
if I don't get paid for it, sometimes when I'm thinking about a problem for days and days and days, even though it's irritating, and then I get that solution, it is satisfying to me. And that's such a good moment. And
mm,
right now in my job, I do have these occasions, but because I'm running around and there's so much thing, I don't focus on it and I just get irritated. But I know if it's creating that presentation where things have to flow beautifully. I love doing that. So let me reconnect with that. So there are parts of work that you actually love, irrespective of the organization. Even if the culture is not good, even if you don't believe in the company purpose, I don't preach that. But you can get down to certain things. And generic areas of problem solving, which always comes up. Growth. Suddenly you learn a new skill and you're able to do something else.
mm,
Growth could be like, hey, my leadership style was very dictatorial. I would tell people what to do, but now I can influence because I realize that's the way to do it. I have a new skill and I feel great doing it. I feel I've grown doing it. Nothing to do with an organization, but it's in the context of work. And that
mm,
lights me up. That gets you engaged. Oh, I'm growing. I'm finding a way to grow. That
mm,
lights you up and again increases the engagement. The second level, so this is in the level of the self, my growth, my sense of fulfillment. The
mm,
second part where you use belonging, I think that's a huge word, where it's teams. And many people recall times where they've been part of teams, especially when they started out, where they didn't care about anything. Everyone was together. It was a united team. They could work late night. It didn't matter. They want to get that feeling back. And when you decode it, everyone wants to belong. But you
mm,
look at, all right, how do I contribute to the team to belong to it? And
mm,
quite often, it's small things. It's like, obviously, you have your functional role, but your other role could be, all right, my role is to ask that difficult question. I keep doing that. And when
mm,
I'm doing that, the overall team thought moves to a different level. And that's how I'm contributing. I'm taking the team forward. Or I'm putting a smile on everyone's face so they can do their best. So,
Mm.
knowing your role on how you contribute makes you feel that you are useful. And when
Mm.
we feel useful among a set of people, we
Yeah.
start feeling like we belong. So, again,
Right.
the company could be anywhere else, things could be different, but with our team, we're belonging through these ways. So,
Mm.
if we think we are growing, from a self standpoint of finding satisfaction, or if we think we're belonging through a role that we are playing in the team where we are all connected,
Mm. Mm.
then we feel that we find engagement at work. Even
Mm.
though we may not agree with many things, we're engaged, things are good. And that's how it gives us agency versus the company doing things to feel engaged, to feel that sense of motivation, because we're there for a certain reason. Maybe we don't completely believe with the mission, but we need to make the money and we're going to spend 5 days doing that. So
Yeah.
might as well find some engagement there.
Right. But do you often have like teams together sitting in the room, or it's like one of the
Yes.
leaders?
So we would have teams together, and quite often there is conflict as well. But
Mm.
sometimes it has to be handled differently. And
Right.
my learnings are when people hear someone's depth, no one's a bad person. That
Yeah.
we generally tend to judge person that, oh, this one's trying to be bad and making my project not work, or
Mm.
stakeholder is managing something else or whatever. You
Mm.
realize, and when you start seeing people as humans, that hey, this guy's actually trying to, like me, get ahead in their career and maybe
Mm.
doing these things, and maybe they're harming me, but it's not that he's angry about me. He's trying to get his own best, so I'm also trying to get my best. And I understand where he comes from, and that is why he talks a lot, because he wants to prove a point, because as a kid there was something else that happened. As you start understanding people at a human level, which comes through after, in my experience, these inner journeys where you remove the noise and you've gone to your depth, people
Mm.
are talking beautiful stories about themselves.
Mm.
And you're starting to see people, and some of the feedback that I get is, I got to know my introverted colleagues better. I thought my boss was a jerk, but I didn't realize that they were, like, sometimes anonymous comments like this. As you start seeing people as humans, they're
Yes.
more likely to understand where they're coming from, what the deal is. And then the conflict is, there's a better chance of managing it. Won't fully go away, but you might
Mm.
have better ways of managing it, because there still may be conflict. Conflict is always part of even organizations and
Yeah.
stuff, but there could be a better way of understanding and managing it.
Right. I love it. I mean, when you really strip them off their titles, job
Yes,
roles, positions, and see through them as humans, there's like a
yes,
better connect.
that's
Okay.
right.
Right. So, speaking of your podcast now, and you speak to some brilliant authors, and I'm sure you're learning a lot in that process. So, I want to ask you, has there been any surprising or impactful lesson that you have learned in this process and which you have tried to incorporate in your own life?
I think there have been so many lessons, and maybe I'll talk about a surprising one, which I kind of didn't expect because I hadn't heard it. Because quite often, when you interview authors, you've already read a lot of the work, so there
Yeah.
are some surprises, but they're part of it. There was a guy who was interviewing who was talking about sports, and he was talking about life lessons in sports and how you can use that. And one of the studies that he shared, which I thought was very powerful, that uh, there was a study done by Sports Illustrated where people were looking at what's the difference between winners and champions. So Roger Federer is a champion; he's won the Grand Slam many times, whereas an Andy Roddick is a winner; he's won it once or twice. So what's that difference? And they tabulated across sports and found one difference. It's called moments that matter. I don't remember the exact word, but he talked about something like moments that matter. Not all moments are the same, but
Mm.
champions are the ones who can understand this is a critical moment and I'm going to win this moment, whatever
Mm.
happens, and do
Mm.
that.
Mm.
What is that implication in life? Like on a 20-year career, every year, every 6 months is not the same, but there could be a 6 months where if you kill it and
Mm.
perform, you're going to get promoted. It's
Mm.
recognizing that moment that these 6 months are more important and I'm going to give it everything and make sure I get that promotion. When
Mm.
you have kids, maybe the first few years of the kids is a
Mm.
very important moment that, all right, I'm now going to give it all and then I can go to other places. Or
Mm.
when maybe a kid is suffering, or when your marriage is going through a tough time,
Mm.
you look at it, okay, this is a critical moment. I am just going to go all in and make this happen. When you're diagnosed with cancer, the next 6 months are critical. I am going to make a change in my lifestyle. Or you could say, it's okay. these things happen, I'll continue to smoke, I don't care. So there are
Mm.
those two attitudes. But if you take the attitude that some moments are much more important than the other, and winning in life is figuring out those moments that matter more. And in
Mm.
those moments, I am not losing. I am going to win because that has a huger impact than anything else.
All right, I love it. And it's quite like the analogy of you don't have to work like a rat on a treadmill, but think like a lion. There can be lazy
Mm,
periods, but then when it's time to hunt, you go for that kill and, give your all.
exactly that.
Yeah.
Exactly that.
Yeah. All right, this is great. Sharad, I want to digress a little bit, and for the benefit of the audience, I want to ask you a few things which I read on your website. And you have stated that lasting happiness isn't sourced from externalities, but by aligning with your deeper purpose. So, if someone feels stuck on this hedonic treadmill, what small steps they can take to start moving in the right direction? If you have like a quick cheat guide for that.
I think inner reflection. And my cheat guide could be now, if you're not used to journaling, ask yourself some questions. So maybe
Mm,
you sit down and say, what makes me alive? This question. And you
mm,
just sit and answer that. What we're trying to do through this is we're trying to figure out ways to go deeper and reflect because all these answers, like you said, the lasting happiness lies inside. So we have to remove the noise. So if you don't like meditation, if you don't like journaling on a regular basis, maybe a prompt based question helps us.
mm,
What makes you alive when you do that? What do you want to be remembered for?
mm,
What gets your energy fully up there? So some of these questions you can put in and do it,
mm,
let's say just for a month, you do
mm,
it every day and you
mm,
just take any question. Maybe you can just even go to chat gpt, give me 30 questions to get to know myself well, and you
mm,
take each question one by one. Give yourself just 5 minutes
mm,
every day to answer these questions. It
mm,
is remarkable. With after the seventh or eighth day, you would already start to get to know yourself a little better. And as you
mm,
go deeper, you'll get to know yourself even better. And if you do it over 30 days, you'll already get some understanding of, yeah, this trend keeps coming. Right now, these
mm,
things are important to me. Maybe I can focus on that. That sets your path inside. So once you start going in, it's an irreversible path. And
mm,
once you get a sense of what's important, those are like values or purpose, then you start living that. And that then gives you a path towards longer happiness, lasting happiness versus external dopamine hits. That
mm.
starts the process.
Interesting. And I love that you included Chat GPT because it's very easy to do and have those reflection questions. Well, Sharad, we already spoke about what sets successful people apart. You did touch upon that. But now, from your own practical experience, you meet a lot of these business leaders, thought leaders. Can you pinpoint any three specific traits which you have observed that really sets people apart?
Yeah. So I like Angela Duckworth's work, and I've seen that in practice. So she wrote about grit, where she
Mm-hmm.
talked about kids. This was in the kids context, that she's gone to all type people who think kids with better socioeconomic backgrounds do better, but she looked at research. That's not necessarily the case. You do have some advantages, but people from all backgrounds do. But what differentiates one kid from another? And after doing her research, she figured out grit. And I think I see grit as a huge thing with adults as well. So, folks who are down and out, but they come back, they keep going, they keep trying. That is a huge skill to have, just that grit. So, I would say that would be one.
Mm-hmm.
Second, I think as you get older, longevity becomes important
Mm-hmm.
because once you're hitting, like I'm late 40s, you're hitting 50s, now you're reaching the next stage of your career and you still have 20 years to go.
Mm-hmm.
If you burnt yourself out very early, it becomes very difficult. There's also research to show your brain cells don't work well, your core skills don't work well. So, how do we have a longer career? The key to that is mental health and mental fitness. And if you're able to have ways to manage our stress, do some exercise
Mm-hmm.
so that we're in the right place, so we are in the right state of mind, we can perform better from a longer standpoint, even in personal life in every way. We don't have to like at 60, 70, we are suddenly done and over. We can keep performing well. So I think longevity, and a lot of people are towards long life, lifespan, these kind of things. I think that's an important one to keep working.
Mm.
And I think the third one I would say is, again, now I'm using books all the time. So it's Growth Mindset, Carol Dweck, which is easier said than done. But as you reach success, it's difficult to kind of try and go to a new skill that you're not good in and try and grow in that, because you suddenly feel success makes you feel like you're on top of the world, and
Mm.
you have that huge confidence. And now, let's say I'm learning, for example, a new skill called storytelling, because that's important in my speaking.
Mm.
But when I learn storytelling and look at others, I'm right at the bottom, and that makes me feel like shit. So growth does not necessarily feel good when you pick up an area, but how can you be okay to get humble, be okay to try and learn a new skill, which then will connect and you can still perform at a new level later on. But how can you be willing to do that? Because often we don't want to tread in those territories once we're up there, which
Mm.
takes us down. So I think these three things come to mind as strong ways to, do better than others.
I love it, especially the longevity part. You brought a fresh perspective. I never thought from that angle that we can exhaust ourselves, that by the time we hit 50, you're like, okay, I'm done. And we are so scared to like make mistakes and don't want to be made fool of. I keep meeting people, they're like, hey, we want to try a new thing, but I'm just scared and afraid of that judgment. So
Yes.
yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it, that you have to fail to kind of build yourself eventually. All right, we are at the end. Sharad, what's next for How to Live? How are you prepping up? You said you still have 20 years to go in this. Is this it, or you can still pivot? Do you have any thoughts? And what specifically next for How to Live? Are you doing something specific to prepare for the new workforce, which will start coming into the corporate world now? So, is there anything going on in your mind about that?
Right. I think what's very interesting for me is, and is based on my experiences, folks in their 40s, 45 to 55, who have done really well and
Hmm.
now looking at, okay, what's my next peak?
Hmm.
And quite often it's like difficult to move because you've already got success. Now you can't shift.
Hmm.
Um, and that area of helping people in that space
Hmm.
as a B2C offering, with a cohort based offering, where over a period of time, you can help them figure what's the next peak for them. And that involves a lot of things. So because when we start our careers, there's
Hmm.
excitement. You're 20, you've come out of business school or whatever, you're excited, you've got full energy, you've got a purpose of doing well, and that energy. By the time you're 45, you're cynical. You are like, shit, I need to be in this company because now I have kids, I need to pay the bills, I have aging parents, I need to look after them. Just making this life work is what I do. But I feel like a cog in the wheel. What am I doing in life? There's a lot of confusion that comes in.
Hmm.
How do we get those people to have the same level of excitement when you're
Hmm.
20s? Because
Hmm.
you're capable of a lot more. And to
Hmm.
me, it's not like, if I take a house analogy, it's not like you keep repairing the house and getting incremental skills. You have to move to a new house and prepare for the next 20 years.
Hmm.
And in moving to the new house, you need to do house cleaning. There's so many things that you built up. You may have succeeded despite that, which you need to get rid of. There are
Hmm.
things that need to evolve. You need to understand your identity. That's a huge thing that comes in the way. From a fear based identity to a new reinvented identity through growth. And then you set the foundation and get ready for the next 20 years in that new house.
Hmm.
And how you're going to create that house and how you're going to move forward. So, this is a passionate area for me. And I'm developing things in this because there are many people like me who are in this place who are like, yeah, we've done well, but now we're suffering and we don't know what to do. And the world is converging on us. And how do we do it? So, those are the people I want to help right now.
But sorry, I'm asking you one more question. Does it involve a lot of creativity from your side? Like, do you think about new exercises or new questions? Does creativity come
Certainly.
into play?
Certainly. And that's a new skill that I'm also working on. I never used to be extremely creative, but
Hmm.
now I'm working on that skill where I was a rational guy, math, one after the other, logical. But now I realize that to make a change, logic does not really fully do it. I need to touch the chord of the emotion, and that does comes from creativity. So I think these inner journeys are one part of it, but even other reflective exercises and things that you do, how I set up the course, learning journey, there's a lot of creativity involved because I'm also doing it differently from, let's say, the HR people, and I'm trying different ways of kind of putting in new things, how to put tech into it. So
Mm,
yes, there is a fair amount of creativity involved there, and that's again purposeful for me. That is
mm,
stimulating me intellectually and creatively, and
mm.
at a self level, that to me is purposeful. Creating this.
I love it. Well, this was excellent, Sharad. I think for anybody who is kind of on the fence and thinking about career resets or pivots or just like in general reinvention, I think there is a lot to get out of this episode. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom here. And I wish you all the best for how to live and hope to see some great guests on your podcast too. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much, Asta. Thank you very much for this great conversation. You're such a good host, moving things forward, making me feel so good. Thank you very much, and all the best for your podcast, and all the best for your future endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sharad.